Post as our meeting partner. We appreciate the great support of all of our partners. And I too want to acknowledge and thank Colin Goldberg, who's a force of nature who put the show together, and Helen, as Carol reminded us. Really great partners. Colin is a product of this community, went to high school here, learned his practice here, and we're so delighted to be working with him and all these great artists. So now we are on to Roz Dimon. Roz, I've had such a pleasure getting to know you over these last couple of months. Roz is a pioneering digital artist whose work has been exhibited and collected since 1989. Dimon is known for her interactive media paintings, an edition like Pale Whale, an edition of which is in the collection of the 9/11 Memorial Museum. In addition to digital art, Roz also has 35 years of physical oil painting experience. Dimon has been fortunate enough to be collected by the late Walter Liedtke of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and her work was recently in the TECHSPRESSIONISM exhibition NFT Now. As I turn the page, NFT Now, that's right, I read ahead. Dimon is represented by Carter Burton Gallery in New York City. So it's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for participating, and we'd love to hear a little bit about your work.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to be here, and thanks to all the staff, and of course Colin. It's been great to be in this show, which in some ways seems to have collapsed borders as much as it has expanded them in a kind of show that you don't see very often. Peter and I were talking about this. The piece I'm talking about has had a lot of, it points to a subject which, as we know this week, has led to a lot of intense thinking on my part, the Kalashnikov. And yet the topic here tonight is art, and this afternoon, and I'm going to speak about it as an artwork, and then also talk a little bit about how I feel about it in the world, the real world out there, as far as the subject that it represents. I will say that in terms of the topic tonight, kind of relating traditional media to digital, I could draw since I was born. I was a very shy kid. People can't believe that now. But I mention that because it was my language. It was my way of feeling the universe, and I was able to draw. It came from my grandparents. And painting and drawing is at the essence of my practice in digital work. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, to a big boisterous family, and was the art kind of all fell on me, and went to the Lamar School of Art, studied in Italy, and got bitten by art in a way that I guess the defining moment was when an instructor said, well, this woman can obviously draw and paint, but what is she saying? What is she touching? What is she feeling? And emotions are a big part of my work. I often say I'm kind of an old-fashioned artist in new clothes. I moved to New York, just giving you a little background, drove my Volkswagen up to New York. Always wanted to be in New York City. And this was even happening in Atlanta. My paintings had started filling with squares and technology. And I really love taking a brush and using it and drawing with it. And yet we react to the time we're in, and all of us artists, it's so interesting to hear the different stories, which I love how Helen Harrison says it's an approach to art here. And that's a very, very good way to look at this exhibit and the expansiveness of it. But it's also, and I think it speaks to this time too, that I was responding to this world distinctly. Digital was invading my art. I tell younger artists it's all been an accident. And so if something happens to you, listen to it closely. My paintings filled up with squares, and I was doing these montage-like things. These are oil on canvas, big pieces, small pieces, Wall Street boys, people eating and drinking with each other, the Pyramid Club downtown, all sorts of things. Myriad technological things were coming in, and my brush was getting so tight, and I didn't even know what a pixel was. So when I called my mother in Atlanta and said I was taking one of the first courses at School of Visual Arts in 1984 to do my art on the computer, she was like, you're doing this? Because honestly, I tell people, it's hard for me to operate a toaster. I mean, we get into things because we need them and we have to have them, and I've never gotten into anything because of trend. So it took me on a whole other adventure. And that adventure led me to reluctantly give up my oil brush. I have done a lot of oil paintings, but I've done a lot more digital in the last many years. But I think I will probably be going back to oils at some point. And I do think that I will, because of this sort of mathematical brush you can get with this brush, I think it's going to change the way I use my oil brush. I'm not sure what's going to happen then. But speeding forward, the way that my work, I think, well, I'm trying to make that bridge between traditional and digital. But responding to that call, it closed some doors for me, because so many galleries, and we talked about this in the TECHSPRESSIONISM Zooms, there's always a price for what you do and the walk that you take. And a lot of gallery doors closed, that if I just kept doing these beautiful, kind of flourishing oil paintings and expressive, I think it would have been an easier path, but certainly not as exciting. A lot of doors close when you say you're in digital, and for some reason people think that the computer's making the art. I didn't want to bring too many props tonight, but this little pencil, when I draw, and I often draw right from my shoulder. I said this in the Zoom the other night, but I don't own a gun. When I started drawing guns, I felt I had to go to target practice and at least learn what is it going to feel like. I hadn't held a gun since riflery camp, like years back. And I think it's because of the point I was making is that I draw from my shoulder. And a New York cartoonist, Mark Gerber, once said, you really draw right in here, right to the arm. I'm not like this. And I found that when I went to the range, the gun range, and my husband was there, and it was a fascinating experience, and it was very secure, and they were very safe. And I found that because I was so interested in the gun at that time, my aim, all I know is that the sheriff of that county in Louisiana came up to me, and he came up to my husband and said, "Are you her husband?" And he said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well, you better watch out, because you've married Annie Oakley." Because I hadn't shot, and I'm not bragging about my guns, that I love to. I don't own a gun, as I said, but I had an aim, and it was really, really quite close on the bullseye every time. But that's my drawing, and my heart to my hand is a large part of what my work is about. And I usually work in series. I did want to say for this piece, this is not a piece that's glorifying guns, but in a way, it is. There's something about the stealth bomber I always found that was exciting. It's beautiful and evil at the same time. Skipping forward some years, but this particular piece, the gun series, which I did a whole series of them in 2016, came out of another series where I was looking at things like safety pins, and I go, look at that little evil booger. You can prick someone, or you can mend a skirt. And I was looking at the peeler that I use with carrots. Poor James, he's always looking for things in the kitchen. He's the chef, and he goes, "Where's the peeler?" Well, it's out in my studio. So a peeler, though, it has that blade in there, and it's perfectly held in place, and yet it just peels a carrot. And I try to get into the inner machinations of that. And the reason I'm using that digital brush still, even in my drawings, is that it speaks to our time, which was something I was getting to earlier, that makes a work of art and a show distinct from any other. There are universals in art, but we are speaking to a time where every one of us probably wants to throw our computer out at times. I can't stand it. We didn't know in the 90s when we were drawing. There was no internet, or there was, but we weren't using it. And we were just, we were using this tool that we could feel was going to change people's lives, and it was coming into the medium of our work. But also, before this piece, one of my pieces was of a razor blade. And when you think about it, you go to Dwayne Reed or your local supermarket, and you buy this razor blade, and we just lovingly do our legs every day or whatever, and it doesn't hurt anything. So we're able to, that tension of taking something sharp and forceful and that could be used in cruelty and maim, and using it for something purposeful and good. I love that whole paradox in the work, and so people have sometimes looked at this and said, "Oh, is it a musical instrument?" And I go, "No, actually it's a Kalashnikov gun." And it was out of that series that this series came about. Now, if I were drawing with my pencil, it would look similar. There is a Roz style. It has an energy, my paintings and my drawings. But I'm drawing with this. But as to Carol's point about, oh, the computer is making the art, hell no. You know what? You're working arduously. If you can't draw outside the computer, you cannot draw inside it. And I'm going in and I've got tons of palettes and thousands of colors and opacities, and I'm working fast because I've been working in this medium a long time. And I'm also deciding, oh, when I build it, instead of like rolling out my canvas and saying, I don't really need this thing, I'm so loud. But my mother says I can be heard across the lake. That's kind of strange for a shy child. But, you know, when you find what you want to do and you're passionate, then you come out. But my point being that if I were doing it traditionally, I'd roll out the canvas and then I'd have it up and I'd be going back and forth. Well, in my computer, I'm going back and forth and I'm picking those brushes and I'm doing it with this and it's feeling my touch. And this is a Wacom pen and I use a Wacom tablet and my whole studio it's pretty technological looking. And it's just, I would say the blend between traditional and computer, I'm trying to share that they would be different, but you couldn't get, if you go up close to this, you can't get these kind of marks with a pencil. And it's not going to reflect the age we live in. These marks have a kind of electronic blend to them. I want to say a little bit about this week. Sad, tragic week, and when you're drawing a piece like this and children are being killed, it's been really tough. And I go, Roz, it's not about you. You think of these people. But I do want to say that speaking about our work is important, and I feel that restraint that I feel that is inside the things that mankind, womankind, humanity have invented, like that brilliant razor blade. Why can't we do that with a Kalashnikov? I mean, the feminine spirit is, I think, so vital right now. I love men, and I really, and I love women too, but I think it's so, I think where I feel I'm tying in my pieces into the process, every time I'm doing one of these pieces, I'm thinking about that, some feminine or womb-like force that's very strong that is saying, don't shoot. There are all these things that are going on in a gun, and I got that feeling when I was using a Glock at the shooting range, but we need to harness that part of our finer part of ourselves and hold that power in. And I always find men so attractive who do that. I mean, and women too. I mean, do we use are we, you know, how do we distinguish ourselves from the beast from which we arose? There's this favorite poem I used to love, and it's by someone anonymous, but it starts with, you know, we are born of risen apes, not fallen angels. So, you know, who are we to wonder? What's wonderful is that we've made symphonies, and it ends with kind of saying how, you know, we won't be defined by our corpses, but by our symphonies. And you know what, this week, we're defined by our corpses here in America, by our children. And so I have to speak to this peace and consciousness, and I give to every town for gun safety. And I want people to meet in the middle, tired of the hatred. And you know what, I think as a woman, I never thought, oh, I'm a female artist and they're a male artist. I never really kind of went for that, but I'm feeling it more inside now, and I feel that we all have that feminine chromosome in us. And I'm just hoping we can all meet in the middle, because the excitement of this piece is all about that push and pull. Do I shoot? Do I not? That pen, do I prick? Do I not? It's been a real push-pull, and I want to tell that story if I'm going to responsibly show this piece. I didn't just sit down and go, oh, I'm going to do Gun for Ukraine. This piece was done 4 years ago as part of the Gun series. And you know, they're everywhere. They're in every truck stop in America. They're just right there for anybody to buy. Semi-automatics. I mean, I think the Second Commandment is more important than the Second Amendment. And you know what? I'm not going to fight people on the Second Amendment if we talk about guns as relates to my subject, but I think we've got to meet in the middle. A civilization, that's where the excitement is. It's all in here. It's all in the middle. It's kind of what my mission thing right now is in speaking about these drawings. There are lots of other works. I had other things to say, but once I get going, it just kind of winds up. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And thank you very much. Real quickly, there's a QR code here that goes to an NFT. All proceeds go to Ukraine. And frankly, the piece on the wall, all proceeds go to Ukraine. I couldn't do a piece like this and take the money for it, so James, we're not going to get rich anytime soon. Thank you.
All right, great. Roz, thank you. And you're doing great work, and I love what you said about the Second Commandment. I've never heard that sort of put in that light before.